Good evening, everybody. Joel Pal Martin the Metalhead here. I hope you're going well. Today it is Friday, the 23rd of April 2021. So that means 11 years ago today, I got on a plane at Brisbane Airport and I flew to Los Angeles, the United States of America. It was my first time in my entire life leaving the continent of Australia, Oceania, because I'd never been outside of Australia and New Zealand in my life. I was only 24 years old, and this started a 6-week period of living in the United States, and I came back to Australia broke, but that didn't stop me from going to 85 nations in a period of like 10 years. So I'm going to read to you the first day of my book. It's called Journal of a Metalhead Volume 1, and it's about my diary of my life in the United States of America and Canada over a 6-week period in May 2010. So the background report goes like this. I can't believe I didn't get to Mexico. My name is Martin Anthony. I'm a young man living the dream of being a metalhead. In 2010, I left home for 6 weeks to take a solid trip of a lifetime to visit the United States and Canada. For those 6 weeks, I was on my own, achieving a lifelong goal to visit North America. For 6 weeks, I went across North America to visit 8 great cities. In the 6 weeks, I was able to see the sites I'd wanted to visit, watch the hard rock and heavy metal bands I wanted to see, and understand what being alone with only $5,000 on tour is like. I survived a bomb threat in Times Square, walked through freeways to get to wing a gig, dodged a jaywalking fine by the NYPD officer, shook hands with Ann and Nancy Wilson, walked the streets and avenues of Manhattan, crawled my hands and feet to visit Lady Liberty, and had a brush with a porn star Carol Cox in Montreal. This is my journal. So we're going to start reading, like it's called Chapter 1, LA Sucks. And it goes by day 1, Friday the 23rd of April 2010. Gosh, I'm so bloody excited, I can't sleep. I'm browsing the internet online till 2 a.m. I have to force myself to go to bed. I got up at 4:30 a.m. to have a warm breakfast with Mum. My mother always cooks the best breakfast with everything I like. I said goodbye to Simon as he slept. Mum helped me put my bag in the car as she drove off into the morning to our nearest train station. On the way to the station, Mum was telling me about not trusting anybody, not starting long-distance relationships, and being safe around alcohol. I've been told all of these golden rules many times in my adult life. It is good to be reminded many times on how to be safe. We drive into the station up the set of ramps and to the 3rd floor, just like the Death Angel song. I give my mother the biggest hug I have ever given her. I'll miss her very much. Mum knows she will be well without me during her operation and recovery. I am enjoying the fruit pack Mum gave me to eat before the plane ride. This will fill me up for a few hours. It's around 5:20 a.m. and I am texting my good friend Dave, telling him to have a good 6 weeks while I'm gone. I arrive at Central Station at 5:50 a.m. A young Greek man helps me get my large bag out of the seat and off the train. I thank him gratefully for his kindness to help a fellow human being. I get to the domestic airport around 6:10 a.m. I've checked my bag all the way to Los Angeles. I must now travel to Brisbane to get my Los Angeles bound flight. I spend the time logging onto Facebook to check my updates. I tell everybody I'll be off in about an hour's time. I board the plane at 8 a.m. to take a back row seat. There will always be brat toddlers on the flights being dickheads. The air hostess gave me some earphones to listen to the radio. Jay Seinfeld is doing his own stand-up. So I just sit back and let the plane take me to Brisbane. I arrive at Brisbane at 9:30 a.m. There was only 1 hour and 30 minutes to get my thin ass on that Boeing 777. There's a lady who is very slow at checking people onto the Los Angeles bound flight. All I want to yell at her is, "Hurry the fuck up, lady! If I miss my flight to Los Angeles, you'll be out of your job." There was a young Indian businessman in front of me. I struck up a conversation with him about work and travel. The lady checks us both into the flight and gives us our boarding passes and express pass. So the young man and I go downstairs and wait for the airport bus. It's a free ride as we hand over our coupon. It only took 2 minutes to get to the international terminal. Once we got there, we made our way through immigration, security, and ID checks at the gate. So I arrived at the gate, and I was allowed to board after 5 minutes. There I went to the back of the plane. I had somehow wished to stay in Brisbane overnight so the Australia could have given me a better seat. In my seat there was a pillow, a blanket, some earplugs, a nightshade, and a bottle of water. There was a delay with the flight to get some late passengers on board. Oh well, I'll have a good book to read and some great people to talk with. I sat next to two old men who were travelling to America. One of them wanted to start a brief pillow fight and I joined in. It's the kind of fun you can have on a long flight. As our flight took off at 11 a.m, we were given US customs forms to fill out. These forms are very important. Even though I had been approved for an ESTA, I still had to fill them in. Flying to America was a nerve-wracking experience. I thought they would tell me to fuck off. But my friend Metal Steve told me not to worry about it. As the plane flew out of Brisbane and out of Australia, I was finally going to America. After 24 years living and 5 trips to New Zealand, I was on my way to North America. During the flight, you can watch TVs, movie shows, listen to albums, and play games as there are screens in every seat. And you can also chat to others during the flight. Sometimes the right music is never verbal. Luckily, I have an iPod, which is all sorts of heavy metal. It was lunchtime as we flew across the Pacific. The people at the back of the plane got the last choice. All they had was vegetarian ravioli with some tasteless salad, tea/coffee, a damper roll, and a slice of cake. I was able to get a bourbon and cola for nothing on this flight. The flight attendants were amazing. One young lady was kindly refilled my bottle when I needed it, asked me if I had good sleep, and we started talking about star spotting in Los Angeles. I told her the first thing I will do in LA is to see Mel Brooks get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I also mentioned that if I run into Sophie Monk and I see paparazzis bothering her, I will give them a spray of my words. She laughed out loud and told me that Sophie Monk flies with the Australia. Well, it is obvious, since to be an Australian and fly between Oz and America, you can only have two choices. Qantas, more expensive, or the Australia, cut price. On the flight, I had about 6 or so hours of sleep, and I would daze in and out. I knew I had to make the most of my first day instead of jet lag. So I took my medication at the right time, and before the plane lands in America, I would have my morning dose. Then they started serving breakfast 3 hours before landing. It was a good hot breakfast with bacon, eggs, and hash brown, with a couple of cups of coffee. The plane lands at LAX just a little bit later than 6 a.m. It's midnight back at home. The plane is towed into the docking station as the fire brigade hose down the plane. As the plane opens its doors, everybody is just standing there in one line, not moving. My mind is yelling, "Get the fuck out of the way, bitch!" The old blokes next to me are still fucking up their green forms. So after I'm out of the plane, I then head on my way to the customs line. There are lines for US citizens. Customs officers are yelling us to join the other desk. As I'm waiting to step up to the desk, I'm thinking about what am I going to say. Should I just say I'm here to see bands, or I'm here to have leisure time? It's my turn to be grilled by the customs officer. What is your reason for entering the United States today? I'm here to see bands across the country. You traveled 15 hours to see bands? Yes. What kinds of bands? Heavy metal bands. What is the name of the bands? I cannot understand a word he is saying, so I asked him to repeat it. So I said, Overkill, Rat, Winger, Heart, Vader, and Evil. The customs officer tells you that that Overkill are playing in Phoenix. And I told him I'll be seeing them on May the 1st in New York. This guy has the mindset to type Overkill tour dates and find them playing in Phoenix tonight. He even asks if I'm carrying drugs. So after giving me the stamp in my passport, I then got my finger and thumbprints entered into the system. I walked out of the airport. I was in the United States of America. I came into the country with ease and no bullshit. I took out my passport and started looking for the pickup area. An old African American started giving me directions, and then he wanted me to give him a donation to a poorhouse. My brother and his wife had warned me not to give people like this any money, so I just gave him $2.20 in Australian currencies. It's not worth jack shit in currency converting. These people are crooks, and the LAPD have warned us all not to deal with these assholes. I then went to the waiting area where I waited to get my shuttle to Hollywood. A big Afro-American woman was blasting the driver for taking my bags. I'm glad he'd given back my bag, otherwise I would have gone to fucking Disneyland. It's around 8:30 a.m. when I got in a shuttle with an Australian couple. The driver tells us all we are driving on the right-hand side of the road. The shuttle driver travels across the 6 terminals where I picked up another Australian. I had a good long chat to the passengers about our travel plans and what we are going to do. The Aussie couple was spending time in Hollywood before going to Vegas to see their diva share. The shuttle traveled on a freeway and we went past Compton, deadly area, downtown Los Angeles. The lovely Filipino driver showed us the Staples Center where Michael Jackson had his funeral. My ride dropped me off at the Banana Bungalow Hostel. I asked about checking in and she told me it's not until 12 noon. So I just left my bag in the free storage place and carried my 2 bags with me. I started walking the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and by the time I saw the Sears Ball star, I knew I'd accomplished a dream in America. I saw an empty star and I had a bright idea banged to my mind. I placed the Hellbringer EP on the star and took a photograph to show my friends online. The Hollywood Walk of Fame stretches for about 3 kilometers. There are over 2,500 stars on the Walk of Fame. There are only a few hard rock heavy metal bands that have stars. Journey, Motley Crue, Kiss, Queen, and Alice Cooper. You don't need to be talented musicians to get one. You just need to work in the industry for 5 years and pay 25 grand. So I was walking to the Hollywood Boulevard and I saw the crew guys setting up the stage for the Mel Brooks induction ceremony at 11:30 a.m. Fans are pouring in and they were willing to wait a few hours to catch a glimpse of the legend himself. So then I headed into a local McDonald's on the boulevard to have some hotcakes. One weird thing I found was that they serve their own frappes unlike the McDonald's we have in Australia. It tastes really nice. I then had a sweet tooth for my favourite American candy of all time. That is Reese's Pieces. I was given a first taste of Reese's Pieces when the torture delivery guy came in every 2 weeks and he gave me a packet of them. Reese's Pieces are peanut butter cups covered with chocolate. They're available in Australia for $2. The price is doubled to import good products. Whenever I see Big Dave in Newtown, I always buy a few cans of Dr. Pepper. After snack time, I then had a huge look around the Chinese theatre. There were a whole bunch of out-of-work actors in suits who wanted to have photographs with you for tips. They were all in Marilyn Monroe, Spider-Man, and Superman costumes. Inside the theatre grounds, there were footprints of many Hollywood stars that have graced the big screen, like Marilyn, Will Smith, and the Harry Potter stars, John Wayne, and even Australia's proud son, Hugh Jackman. Outside the theatre, there were some of my favourite musicians and actors that have stars, Bruce Lee, Elton John, and Hattie McDaniel. As I walked past the Hard Rock Cafe, I saw the Olivia Newton-John star. I had to take a photo of her star while giving her the horns, because without her music I may have never found heavy metal. I then walked back to the ceremony area and waited for the arrival of Mel Brooks. I started talking to a couple from Canada and told them that I just landed here 5 hours before from Sydney and that I'm looking forward to seeing Mel Brooks get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Some bigots were driving around by the ceremony and yelled out, "Is Osama bin Laden getting a star?" We all booed at this Yankee disgrace as he drove off into Hollywood. The mayor of Hollywood was telling us all about famous people near the stage, and one of them was the great Carl Reiner. Everybody remembers the Simpsons episode where Mel Brooks stated that he hated Carl Reiner. I could see Carl Reiner 100 meters from where I was standing, so I did feel that I was seeing a star. Mel Brooks arrived at the ceremony around 11:30 a.m. He was welcomed to his induction ceremony with a standing ovation. The mayor of Hollywood asked if Mel would like to say something before his friends would do. Mel said to the tree clippers, "Watch out for the bird's nest." After seeing the legend Mel Brooks crack a few jokes at his induction ceremony, I started heading back to the Banana Bungalow Hostel. It was a good 15 minutes walk and I really needed to check in and pay my bill. So as soon as 12 noon passed by, I was showing up to my big room. It had a lounge bed, a TV. There was no fridge that you could open with a key. I freshened up with my first shower in 48 hours. It was good to have a shower after a flight. With my room locked up and my maps of Westwood ready, I started walking to the sunset. On an all-day pass for $5, I could ride on all the buses and trains. Getting on my first bus was spooky, but then the lovely Afro-American bus driver told me it would be valid until midnight. In my mind, I was focusing on going to Westwood Memorial Park, but as the bus was driving by, I saw the Hollywood Rock Walk, where a lot of legends in rock and metal were immortalized. Dimebag, Slash, Heart, John Lennon, Cheap Trick, Dio, Def Leppard, and Iron Maiden. I spent time after time putting my hands into the stars' print so I could find out if I had a bigger hand or not. Most of the time my hand fitted perfectly into the prints. I then walked a fair bit to another stop where I boarded the bus and was driving past iconic metal venues like in LA, such as the Roxy, the Viper Room, the Rainbow, and the Key Club. I saw a big, giant billboard promoting the new Rat record, Infestation. This record came out 3 days ago, and it was their very first heavy metal record in 20 years since Detonator. I continued on the bus ride until I reached Westwood. I got off near the UCLA Center. It was a hospital where the legends were cured or passed away. I got a book out of my pocket and started searching for Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. On the map, the cemetery was the size of a postage stamp. The grounds were tucked away between high-rise buildings. Walking around, I could see that Westwood was such a great city filled with vibrations and culture. It was like a getaway from the demons of Hollywood. Most people who were buried in Westwood died while battling their inner demons. I found the cemetery, and to enter, I walked through a small car park that was leading to the underground. I passed the gate, and I was inside. I was excited to get into the cemetery. It was one of my dreams from 2003 to visit the dead in Hollywood. I was wearing my denim vest while listening to Black Sabbath's Headless Cross. As I was walking through the cemetery grounds, I found a final resting place of many legends of film, music, TV, and society. Not just famous people get buried here. There were many ordinary people, so if you lived your life in Los Angeles but never became a true legend, you could still get your corpse dumped here for a high price. I remember to pay respects to the legendary Mel Torme, and just next to Mel was the tomb of Heather O'Rourke, the child actor from Happy Days and the Poltergeist trilogy. She died of cardiac arrest in 1988 at the age of 12. It was a very sad tale how she died that young. Her death was part of the so-called Poltergeist cult. Her co-star Dominic Dunn was also strangled by a boyfriend on the 30th of October 1982 and was pronounced dead on the 4th of November. Everyone who visits the cemetery cannot leave without paying respects to the great Marilyn Monroe, the most visited grave in the cemetery. People leave pennies, silver cents on her grave. Her tombstone is filled with them. I left an Australian 20-cent coin on her tomb. It was a proud thing to do. I then walked into the grass and found the graves of Natalie Wood, Betty Page, and Eve Arden. I even found the unmarked grave of Roy Orbison and Frank Zappa. I loved Frank Zappa's music, and he was a revolutionary person in the rock industry. I made a Z out of twigs I found nearby. What I loved most about the cemetery was that in the south of the grounds there were rose gardens to inherit the ashes, and there was a small fountain where the ashes of Peggy Lee and James Coburn were put. Also some wonderful family blocks of graves with the likes of Rodney Dangerfield, Mervyn Griffin, Carol O'Connor, and Farrah Fawcett were buried. And there were all some funny grave store plaques like Rodney Dangerfield, There Goes the Neighborhood, Jack Lemmon Inn, Merv Griffin, I will not be right back after this message. These quotes caused me to laugh out loud in the cemetery. Cemeteries are sad places where you go to visit the dead, but it can sometimes be happy there. Westwood Memorial Park was a good place to take photographs. The management allowed you to take photographs of the graves, and there was a handy Mexican groundskeeper to help you find the grave of the star you're looking for. After my cemetery visit, I spent an hour or so walking around Westwood finding my way to the bus stop. Westwood was a nice part of town with cafes all around. I then got on the bus that took me through Beverly Hills again. I saw the classic Beverly Hills sign on the way out of town. There were only 4 of them. I ended up the afternoon at the Sunset Strip. I walked past the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the Viper Room, and the House of Blues and the Roxy. Many of my favourite metal bands have played here in the last 35 years. Saxon did a gig of the Whiskey A Go-Go with Metallica in 1982, and that was one of Metallica's first few gigs. I then got a bus back to my hostel. On the bus, I noticed a lady that looked like a porn star I saw online many years ago. On the bus, I was feeling sleepy. I just wanted to crash. But it was only around 6 p.m. and I still wanted to keep exploring. I had another walk around the Hollywood Boulevard trying to find certain band stars. After a meal at the snack bar, I hung out in the hostel with some of the locals, and they were all surprised to see me walking around the place. I had a chat with an old man who digs living colour. It was good to be in America right now, and find people who share the same type of music as I do. As I laid in the bed at Banana Bungalow, I just couldn't believe I was finally in Los Angeles, finally visiting the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and finally visited Westwood Memorial Park. I had suggested this trip to my friends in 2003, but none of them wanted to go with me. I have had to wait years being unemployed or working a shit job to finally get here. Oh well, it's 8 p.m. I had to go to sleep. There were more tombstones to visit tomorrow. So this book, Journal of a Metalhead Volume 1, it's available online at Lulu. Just click the link down below in the description to buy a copy. You can get a I think you can either get like an e-book or a hard book. But you know, I've only got like a few photographs in the, like I'll show you right here. So I only put in a few photographs. So that's the UN General Assembly. That's the Hellbringer, like EP, when they were known as Forgery on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's me giving the horns to Lieutenant John Star. That's seeing Mel Brooks, Getty Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame with the Mayor of Hollywood. And what else is this? I think there's other there could be other photographs. Stupid pages. Oh yeah, that's Carl Reiner. Yeah, he died like last year, so I was quite sad when he passed away because I got to see Carl Reiner on my first day in Hollywood, and that is Frank Zappa's unmarked grave at Westwood Memorial Park, and that's pretty much about it. So here it is, and when you turn on your side, basically, I've got like Overkill, Winger, Heart, Rat, Possessed, and Pestilence. All these bands I saw when I was like living in the United States for a couple of weeks. Anyway, this is Martin the Metalhead. Hope you've enjoyed listening into my reading. Apologize for any of the scorings, but I wrote this when I was like 24, going on 25. I finished writing this in 2012, but I didn't publish it until 2014. If you buy a copy of my book, you're really going to be helping me travel the world once this whole pandemic ends. Anyway, Martin the Metalhead, over and out.